Hey family, it's African Osorenko, and I'm back at you family with another video. So today we're going to be discussing President Trump and how he is trying to erase Black American history, which we know Trump will not be able to do. You know, family, in my 56 years on this earth, it never amazes me the things that this white supremacist nation won't go to, what extremes they won't go to deduce black people to nothing. But it's not going to happen. It hasn't happened in the over 400 years that we've been dealing with this enemy, and it's not going to happen now. So I'm going to get into this. Excuse me. I'm going to get into this story right now, family. So it says Trump sets his sights on National African American History Museum. Adam Sanchez remembers tears streaming down a student's face as his high school class left the lower level of the National Museum of African American and Culture a few years ago. Everyone understood why he had tears in his eyes, said Sanchez, a former high school history teacher. Sanchez gathered his students there on a field trip from New York City in a quiet space to reflect on the exhibits of slavery and the Middle Passage. It was such a powerful experience for all of them, he said. The Smithsonian Institution Museum opened with much fanfare 9 years ago and has been lauded for its mission to share the good and the bad of the Black experiences in America, including slavery. Now it's also in the sights of President Donald Trump, who called its work part of a widespread effort to rewrite our nation's history. Museums in our nation's capital should be places where individuals go to learn, not to be subjected to ideological indoctrination or divisive narratives that distort our shared history, said Trump. This, he's an idiot. This man is a complete idiot. But as I said, you can try to erase history, but you can't. You won't be able to. They're not going to be here long enough to do anything because we know they are on an uptick of disappearing globally, okay? It's not clear what Trump's directive will mean for the National African American Museum, if anything, but its director, Kevin Young, stepped down on April 4th, a little more than a week after Trump's executive order. The museum, which hosted 1.6 million visitors in 2024, serves as a cornerstone in the preservation of African American history, a number of community leaders and organizations said in its defense. From slavery to civil rights to the cultural innovations that continue to shape the world, the museum ensures these stories are not forgotten, denied, or politicized, the National Council of Negro Women said in a statement. Anything under the sun is susceptible, said Vedette Coleman Robinson, executive director of the Association of African American Museums. It would be a travesty to not have your culture specific museums anywhere in the country, but definitively in the nation's capital. History comes alive. Sanchez took 15 students from Harvest Collegiate High School on a field trip to the African American Museum in 2017, the same week as Trump's first inauguration. I knew that the museum was going to bring this history to life in a way that you couldn't in the classroom, said Sanchez, now managing editor of Rethinking Schools, a social justice teaching publication, and it certainly did. Nakia Rowe, then a student on the trip, said it gave her a sense of strength and pride. The museum highlights the deep, complex history of African Americans and their contributions to this country, she wrote in a recent note shared with USA Today. And she said it plays a crucial role in educating society about the rich, complex, and often overlooked history of African Americans. Schools have long overlooked important aspects of African American history, said Brian Stevenson, founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, a human rights organization pushing to end mass incarceration of blacks, predominantly blacks. The organization has a museum and a sculptor in the park in Montgomery, Alabama, dedicated to telling the story of the African American experience, including slavery in America. I don't think schools have ever done a great job of teaching people about many aspects of our history. That's why you go to the Smithsonian. That's why you go to spaces that are trying to fill those gaps. So there was a poem, and this is up in the Smithsonian, and it says kidnapped, trafficked, enslaved, and abused. Enduring the horrors of and pain of slavery, you still found the capacity to love, to dream, to nurture new life, and to triumph. We honor your strength. We honor your perseverance in the midst of sorrow. We honor your struggle for freedom. Your children love you. The country you built must honor you. We acknowledge the tragedy of your enslavement. We commit to advancing freedom in your name. In Trump's recent order, Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History, he complained the Smithsonian has come under the influence of a divisive, race centered ideology, as though America is not racist. This shift has promoted narratives that portray American and Western values as inherently harmful and oppressive. Do y'all hear that? We already know that the American value system is set up on oppression. Okay, this the world knows. Those teaching make America look bad and undermine its achievements. Trump and some conservatives have said, we will restore the Smithsonian Institution to its rightful place as a symbol of inspiration and American greatness, says his order. Singling out the African American History Museum uh, is signed in Trump's order, putting it on the spotlight despite its millions of visitors. And during his first term, President Trump was also one of them. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to say this, family. You know, this country has been known to try to erase the history that it conducted itself in during slavery and after slavery. Even up until now, to this very day, they still redline black communities. They still greatly, you know, come over and they redistrict black communities. Um, Black communities are paying higher property taxes, and other taxes, yet they don't get the same benefits of the counterpart communities. They have done a great job trying to disparage the black community. But as Maya Angelou said, but still we rise. You see, we will rise and we will continue to rise despite the oppressive tactics of the Caucasian class in America. So they can continue to do everything they can to prevent, you know, black greatness. But they will never prevent black greatness. You understand? We are the true people of the Most High. We are. Because let me tell you something. For what our lineage has been through, there would have been no way that had this been a different community, they would have survived. You see, during slavery, many died, but I think it was like under 1,000. Uh, the first ship that came to America of black slaves, of African slaves, and I believe they didn't lose any. Okay, slaves were shipped all over the world. Okay, um, the transatlantic slave trade was not the only slave trade. There was also the Spaniard slave trade, where they stole Africans. Okay, over in some cases, given Africans. Now, let me say this before anybody gets their panties up in a bunch. I am not saying that Africans, how can I say this, anticipated what was going to happen to the black Africans that they sold to the Europeans. I'm not saying that. However, the truth is what occurred, and there was great harm done to the people, the black people that were transported to America. Okay? And it just is what it is. And we cannot get around that because it's the truth. However, despite slavery, despite being oppressed, despite uh, not being having the ability initially to read, being killed if you were trying to read, okay? Despite everything that they have thrown at us, we have managed to yet still rise. Many of the inventions in America were created by Black Americans that didn't get their due just. Okay, it was stolen. They were stolen. They were taken. You know, they have did so many things. So many uh, Africans come to America and don't understand everything, and some do learn. Okay, some do learn. Okay, but they still sometimes are in a place to think that we're not grateful. And it's not that we're not grateful, but what should we be grateful for? The over 200 years of slavery, the over 400 years of oppression, uh, the taking of our communities, the taking of our land, the killing of our men, the killing of our children. And look, there's something else, you know, and I would suggest that you do your history. Enslaved people were also made meals. Okay? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? See, so many don't know or don't care to know the true history of America. Okay. And this is why, as a Black American and Black Americans, we try to teach what has transpired in America. Okay. Black babies were used as alligator bait. Okay. Imagine, imagine, and I'm just saying, imagine taking little babies from Africa and then throwing them to the gators so that they can catch the gators for the gator skin and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Just imagine. These are all things that truly occurred. Imagine uh men, black men, uh being unalived, being sexually attacked, uh being forced to have sex with their mother or sisters, and sometimes even daughters. Imagine. See, uh, you know, as I have stated before, I think black people globally should come together. But when you go to a country and don't learn the history of that country, I mean, every country that I've been to, I tried to learn the history of it. I might didn't become a scholar about the country and the happenings and what has occurred in the country, but I learned enough to know something about the history of the country and the people. My plan is to visit Rwanda. What kind of person would I be if I went to Rwanda and didn't learn or try to understand what occurred during the Great Massacre in Rwanda? You know, so we have to learn each other. We have to learn what happened to each other, and we have to be supportive to one another because too often uh you know um efforts are criticized, and when I say these things, I'm trying to be realistic, and some will not get it. Some will just not get it, and that's fine. Hopefully some will. But family, I always speak for black unity globally, because that is my hope, that is my prayer, that we see black unity globally. Because the day that happens is the day that stuff will shut completely down. Okay? So, I see it happening every day. I do see it, you know, uh, it's coming, it's slowly coming, but it's coming. And I'm grateful for that. So, family, I thank you so much for joining me today. Please like, share, and support the channel by subscribing. And we appreciate you so much, family. All right? You'll never know how much. All right. Thank you so much and take care. Bye bye.